From a rifle that outgunned every enemy infantry force on the planet to a $2 pistol dropped behind enemy lines by the million, the United States built the most complete weapons arsenal of World War II. These are all of them. First up, rifles and carbines. M1 Garand. 8 rounds, semi-automatic, no bolt to work. While every major enemy army was still manually cycling their rifles, the Garand fired as fast as the trigger could be pulled. General Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. Over 4 million produced, he wasn't wrong. M1 Carbine, the most widely produced American firearm of the war, over 6 million built. Lighter than the Garand, issued to officers, support troops, radio men, and engineers who needed more than a pistol but couldn't carry a full battle rifle. M1A1 Paratrooper Carbine. The M1 Carbine with a folding wire stock, built to jump with. Folded to 25.4 inches and strapped to the chest. Paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne hit the ground in Normandy with this in their hands, ready before they stopped moving. M1903 Springfield, a World War I bolt action still fighting in World War II. 5 rounds, manually cycled, chambered in .30-06. Slower than the Garand, but accurate, reliable, and impossible to write off. Over 1.3 million served in both wars. M1903A4 Springfield Sniper. The standard Springfield, stripped of its iron sights and fitted with a Weaver or M73B1 scope. America's primary sniper rifle, from North Africa to Okinawa. Accurate enough that it never needed replacing, just a better optic. M1917, Enfield. More American soldiers carried this into World War I than the Springfield, and it came back for World War II, issued for training, rear security, and Lend-Lease. M1941, Johnson Rifle, the Garand's rival that almost wasn't. A semi-automatic with a rotary 10-round magazine that could be topped off mid-fight, something the Garand couldn't do. Adopted by Marine raiders and para-Marines in the Pacific. Next up, submachine guns. Thompson M1928-01, the Tommy gun, top-mounted handle, cuts compensator, a reputation built in Chicago back alleys. Heavy, expensive at $209 each, and devastating in close quarters with .45 ACP, the submachine gun America went to war with. Over 1.5 million produced across all variants. Thompson M1A1. The wartime Thompson, simplified, cheaper, faster to build. No compensator, no drum magazine, no top cocking handle. Cost cut from $209 to $45. Still fired the same .45 ACP at 600 rounds per minute. What it lost in looks, it gained in output. M3 grease gun. Ugly, stamped from sheet steel, looked like a mechanic's tool. Built by General Motors Guide Lamp Division. Fired .45 ACP, slower than the Thompson, which made it easier to control. Around 650,000 produced. Issued to tank crews, paratroopers, and anyone who needed reliable firepower without a price tag. M50-M55 Reising. The Marines' stopgap when Thompson production couldn't keep up. Accurate, lightweight, and a disaster in the field. At Guadalcanal, the humidity corroded it, the mud jammed it, and parts wouldn't interchange between guns. Around 120,000 built. Pulled from frontline service by 1943. Moving on to pistols and revolvers. M1911-01. The sidearm America carried for over 70 years. A .45 ACP semi-automatic built by Colt, Ithaca, Remington Rand, Union Switch and Signal, and Singer. Nearly 1.9 million produced in World War II alone. Smith & Wesson Victory model. A .38 special revolver named for the V for Victory campaign. Over 250,000 produced by Smith & Wesson for air crews, naval personnel, and security forces. Simple, reliable, and issued to anyone who needed a sidearm but wasn't going into the front line. Colt M1917. Revolver, A Great War revolver brought back into service when M1911 production couldn't keep up. Fired .45 ACP through half-moon clips. Around 188,000 still in inventory in 1940, refurbished and reissued to MPs, tankers, and artillery crews. High-standard HDM, silenced pistol. A .22 caliber pistol with an integral suppressor built only for the OSS, demonstrated in the Oval Office. Fired into a sandbag while President Roosevelt was in the room. He didn't notice. Used for exactly one job, silent elimination, where the only acceptable sound was the hammer falling. FP45 Liberator, single shot, .45 ACP, stamped from sheet metal in 11 seconds per unit. Cost $2.10 each. Over 1 million produced in 1942 and dropped behind enemy lines across occupied Europe and the Pacific. Next on the list, machine guns. M1918, a 2B AR, the cornerstone of the American infantry squad. A .30-06 automatic rifle, 19.4 pounds, 20-round magazine, 300 to 650 rounds per minute. One per squad. Designed by John Browning in World War I, still performing in World War II because nothing better had replaced it. M1917. A 1 Browning, water-cooled. The heavyweight champion of sustained fire. Water in the jacket meant it could fire for hours without overheating, essential for defensive positions holding a line. Around 128,000 produced across both world wars. M1919, a 4 Browning, air-cooled. The workhorse medium machine gun. Lighter than the M1917, mounted on everything. Jeeps, half-tracks, tanks, landing craft, infantry tripods. Fired .30-06 at 400 to 550 rounds per minute. Could go anywhere the fighting went. M1919, a 6 Browning. The M1919A4 with a buttstock and bipod bolted on. An attempt to make a tripod weapon portable for squads, front-heavy and awkward to carry. But when a light automatic firing, full power .30-06 rounds was needed and nothing else was available, the A6 answered. M2HB Browning .50 caliber. Medusa, a .50 BMG heavy machine gun that shredded light vehicles, aircraft, and fortifications at ranges where other weapons had given up. Designed in 1918. Still in active U.S. service today. The longest-serving weapon in the American military arsenal. M1941. Johnson light machine gun. The automatic companion to the Johnson rifle. A 20-round rotary magazine, light enough for airborne operations used by the same Marine raiders and para-Marines in the Pacific. Limited numbers, enthusiastic operators, continuing with shotguns. Winchester Model 1897, trench gun. The shotgun Germany formally protested in World War I as inhumane, and tried to have banned, an exposed hammer pump action that could slam fire all 6 shells by holding the trigger and working the pump. Winchester Model 12. The hammerless successor, cleaner, faster, preferred by Marines in the Pacific. Nearly 2 million produced across its production life. Called the perfect repeater at its introduction. Ithaca 37. Bottom ejection. Shells load and eject through the same port underneath. That design kept the sides sealed against mud and debris, around 1,422 on U.S. military contract during the war. Uniquely reliable in the Pacific's worst conditions. Stevens 520-30. The humpback receiver made it recognizable at a glance, issued for guard duty and base security, but went into combat when needed. The government bought every Stevens 520 already in the company's warehouse when war began. Next, anti-tank and support weapons. M101 Bazooka. Revolutionary, a portable 2.36-inch rocket launcher that gave infantry a fighting chance against tank armor. General Marshall ordered 5,000 on the spot after watching the first field test in May 1942. M9A1 Bazooka. The 2-piece bazooka designed so paratroopers could break it down and jump with it. Reassembled in seconds. Range extended to 300 yards, around 277,800 M9A1s produced. The 82nd and 101st Airborne jumped into Normandy with them. M18 recoilless rifle, 57 mm. Not a rocket, a true recoilless cannon fired from the shoulder. Gas vented out the breech to eliminate recoil, allowing shoulder fire of an artillery-caliber round. Accurate to 400 meters, 37 mm anti-tank gun M3. The standard US anti-tank gun when the war began, and quickly useless against German armor, earned the nickname Pop Gun in Europe. In the Pacific, where Japanese tanks were lighter, it stayed useful until the end. 57 mm anti-tank gun M1, the American-built British 6-pounder, adopted in 1942 to replace the 37 mm. Over 15,600 produced. Could defeat most German medium tanks at combat range. Replaced the pop gun in Europe. M7 rifle grenade launcher. A muzzle attachment that turned the M1 Garand into a light artillery piece. One blank cartridge, one grenade, launched farther than any soldier could throw. Standard issue across infantry and marines. Moving on to field artillery. 75 mm pack, Howitzer M1A1. The Paratrooper's cannon. Designed in the 1920s to be broken into 9 parachute loads and dropped into combat, then reassembled by a trained crew in 7 minutes on the ground. Range of 9,610 yards, around 4,939 produced. 105 mm Howitzer M2A1, M101, the backbone of American divisional artillery. Standard in every infantry division, 3 battalions of 12 guns each, 36 per division. Range of 12,330 yards. Over 8,500 built by the end of the war. 105 mm Howitzer M3. The airborne version of the standard 105 mm. Same barrel as the M2A1, shortened by 27 inches and fitted to the carriage of the 75 mm pack howitzer. Built so, glider troops could tow it with a quarter-ton jeep. 155 mm Howitzer M1, M114, the heavy fist of American Corps artillery. A medium howitzer with a range of 16,355 yards, over 9 miles, crewed by 11 men, over 10,300 produced between 1941 and 1953. Each artillery regiment had 1 battalion of 12 of these alongside its 3 105 mm battalions. Next, mortars. M260 mm mortar, pocket artillery. 42 pounds, 3 men, set up anywhere. Maximum range of 2,000 yards, around 60,000 produced, with 51.7 million rounds of ammunition manufactured to feed them. M181 mm mortar, the battalion workhorse. Heavier at 136 pounds total, longer ranged at 3,300 yards, hitting with the force of a 75 mm howitzer round. Around 40,000 produced, dropped in parachute bundles on Operations Neptune, Market Garden, and Varsity. M2 4.2-inch chemical mortar, designed to deliver chemical agents, never used for that purpose. A rifled barrel gave it accuracy smooth-bore mortars couldn't match. Range extended to 4,500 yards by war's end. One company fired 1,519 rounds into Aschaffenburg in the last 3 days of March 1945 alone. Next on this list, grenades and explosives. Mark II pineapple grenade, the iconic American fragmentation grenade. Cast iron grooved for grip, not fragmentation, despite the myth. 4-second fuse, standard issue from 1918 through Korea. Millions produced. M15 white phosphorus, Willie peat. Burning phosphorus that ignited on contact with air and couldn't be extinguished. Used for smoke screens, target marking, and forcing entrenched enemies out of cover. Bangalore torpedo. Connectable tubes of explosive, pushed under wire, detonated, path cleared. Made famous at Omaha Beach on D-Day, where Rangers used them to breach German obstacles under fire. TNT satchel charge, a canvas bag, TNT blocks, and a fuse. Thrown into bunkers, placed against fortifications, used to drop bridges. Simple enough for any combat engineer to build and deploy. Used from Normandy to Okinawa. M1 anti-tank mine. Passive, pressure activated. Buried in roads and fields. Weighed 10.75 pounds. Hundreds of thousands laid across every front. Knives and bayonets. M3 combat knife. As bayonets became impractical, the M3 filled the gap. A 6.75-inch double-edged blade. Not a bayonet, not a tool. A weapon built for one purpose and nothing else attached to it. USMC Carbine Mark II. Perhaps the most famous military knife in American history. A 7-inch clip-point blade tough enough to open crates and sharp enough for combat. Carried by Marines from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima. M1 Garand bayonet. Originally 16 inches. Sword length. Impractical in jungle and urban combat. Cut down to 10 inches in the M1905E1 modification. Mounted on the Garand for the final assault when ammunition was gone, and the last 10 inches of steel was all that was left between a soldier and the enemy. And finally, flamethrowers. M1A1 flamethrower. The weapon that defined close-quarters combat in the Pacific. 2 fuel tanks, 1 nitrogen propellant cylinder, 68 pounds total strapped to a soldier's back. Maximum range of 45 feet. M2-2 flamethrower. The improved version. Lighter, longer ranged at 65 feet. More reliable ignition. Standard US flamethrower from 1944 onward. Used extensively on Iwo Jima and Okinawa.